Hello, my name is Penny Calicio with Take Solutions. Welcome to today's webinar on improving patient monitoring, retention, and safety in clinical trials using mobile solutions. I will be your host for today's webcast. I would like to take this opportunity to introduce you to your presenters and speakers for today's webcast. The new Director of Technology for Take Solutions and Vincrunt, Head of Global Marketing for NowPlus. We're going to start the presentation, and I'm going to hand over the presentation to Venu.
Yeah, thanks, Penny. Hi, everyone. I'm Venu Malarapu, Director for Technology at Take Solutions. Welcome to our webinar today. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you are joining us from. I'll quickly take a look at the agenda for today. We would be starting off with looking at typical challenges in recruitment, monitoring, and safety, and need for improving patient retention, and how compliance plays an important role in improving patient retention. And we'll also look at mobile technology being the disruptive technology for clinical trials, and how it is used in clinical trials, or how it can be used in clinical trials, and what would entail a typical mobile PRO application in terms of features. Then my colleague Vikrant will walk us through a typical implementation and the value proposition and benefits of such a solution. We will also highlight our experience in the form of a case study and the delivery process that we have followed for that. And subsequently, we will also take a quick look at PaDiSys, the application that we have developed, and we will walk through a quick demo of that, followed up by Q&A at the end. So we'll start off with challenges and concerns in clinical trials. So if you look at the typical challenges in terms of recruitment, monitoring, safety, and compliance, some of the challenges that the sponsors and CROs face in recruiting the patients is due to poor societal awareness of the patients itself in terms of the clinical trial process and what it takes for them to be part of such a process and what kind of impacts it would have. And one of the topmost concerns is definitely safety on what kind of adverse events or side effects, as it is commonly known, would they have to go through in order to be part of such trials. And also in terms of impact on the quality of life of patients who would be part of these clinical trials, because they would have to go through multiple visits to the sites to which they are affiliated to during the course of the trial, and various other visits that they would have to make and adjustments they would have to make to their daily routine. Also, these trials are typically, because of the increasing complexity of the protocols, protocol is like a plan for the clinical trial, these trials are becoming more complex and lengthy, which in turn would have an impact on how many patients that are recruited at the beginning of the study would continue to be part of that study. So that is reflected in terms of poor retention rates, which is a major challenge for many of the sponsors and CROs. Also, in terms of selecting the right site where you would get the right patient population that would meet the inclusion-exclusion criteria of the protocol, and so on and so forth. And some of the aspects during the course of these trials, if you see, that the stakeholders would face is non-compliance to protocol, where the patients may not take the medication on time, and also do not follow up with the visits, and the data capture is not a real-time thing, so they can monitor real-time. Similarly, inability to monitor safety concerns of the patients from a patient perspective. And if these trials are carried out using paper-based trials, the adverse events that are captured in the paper form would take a lot of time for that information to get back to the research teams for being able to analyze that. Also, as I mentioned earlier, because of the patient dropouts, the stakeholders are forced to recruit 10 to 20% more patients than they actually need because of them anticipating that many of these patients might drop out. And similarly, in terms of the overall delay because of patient dropouts and for various reasons, if the overall trial is delayed, then that would result in delay in submission of the data for analysis, submission of the new drug application itself by the sponsor to the regulator, which in turn would have an impact on not only the amount of money that goes into completing the trial, but also in terms of the return of investment for the sponsor, and not to mention the most important aspect of any clinical research is being able to provide the necessary care and address the indications for the patients that are in their need of these medicines. Just looking at the patient retention aspect of the clinical trials, in a study that was conducted by CapGemini recently, if you look at the graphic here, the adherence levels, if you start with the first filling of a prescription, starts off at 69%, and by about 6 months, you can notice that adherence rate gradually comes down to almost 43%. And this may vary from therapy to therapy, or what they have noticed is 50% in case of depression studies versus 63% for enlarged prostate. And on an average, as I mentioned earlier, reduces from 69%. That 69% also is from the day the patient is enrolled to the first prescription is filled up. So that they're losing almost 31% right there, and within 6 months it goes down all the way to 43%. So you don't even have 50% of the patients that you have recruited into the study by 6 months. That's a huge challenge for CROs and sponsors and all the stakeholders involved in the clinical research. And one of the key reasons is being able to monitor the compliance of patients, being able to engage them. And as we looked at earlier at the beginning of this session, safety is a primary concern of any research initiative. And to be able to reach the calculated endpoints, being able to monitor, capture the data, and also retaining the patient plays a key role. And the key to success of the overall trial depends on how compliant everybody is to the protocol, and most importantly, the patient. And the key aspects of compliance are in terms of safety, making sure that the patient's safety is taken care of, and any adverse events are captured. In terms of data collection, not only collecting the right amount of data, but also ensuring that the quality of data collected is good, and then being able to retain patients so that you have the number of patients that are required to complete the study, and monitoring overall on how the study is progressing. And if you look at some of the things that would happen in case if the compliance is not up to the mark, is the R&D spend of sponsors could run up to 50 billion plus, for which 40% is spent on research, in the overall life cycle of a drug. And it's also constantly growing year over year, and that is the reason why it is critical that compliance is managed during the course of the trial. And patient safety, as we discussed earlier, is a big cause of concern. And also, the sponsors, they jump through a lot of hoops to make sure that the data that's being generated and the data that is being collected for each trial is compliant and also brings the safety issues to the light. And with the increased regulation, I think that's becoming a very key aspect of being able to understand the safety profile of their drug as early in the cycle as possible. So having looked at that, now let's quickly take a look at the mobile technology in general as to how disruptive it is in the clinical trial process, and how are some of the mobile solutions being used in terms of recruitment, monitoring, and safety, and also look at typical requirements for a patient-reported outcome application, mobile application in general, and more so from a patient-reported outcome perspective. So disruptive methods, by definition, comes from definition of disruptive innovations that states it be a new technology or an innovation or methodology that displaces an established one. And mobile technology today, it fits that description and is fast becoming a one-stop solution for a number of problems within life sciences and clinical trial industry in general. And here are some of the reasons as to why people are looking up to mobile technology, and leveraging that in the overall clinical trial process. Is the technology helps them improve compliance to protocol, and in terms of patient safety as well as the quality of data that is captured, and it reduces the number of patients to be recruited, and helps in monitoring the enrolled patients much more closely than you could have. And it can track and monitor patients from a safety perspective, and becomes a very live and active channel of communication, which would lead to reduction in the patient dropouts because you are continuously keeping them engaged and informed. The compliance also goes up because of that. And for all these reasons, the overall cost of clinical trial would be reduced considerably because if you don't retain the patients, or if the patients are not compliant with the protocol, the whole process takes longer. That means the sponsor is forced to spend that much more money into the overall process. Looking at how mobile solutions are being used in clinical trials, from a monitoring perspective, it helps clinical staff to closely monitor patients, which we have talked about a few times already, and that would lead to improving compliance and adherence to protocol. Could send out medication intake reminders and follow-up. Could also help in interventions, sending reminders for visits, and being able to pull out reports of compliance or non-compliance of patients. And this would lead to more real-time monitoring and real-time decision-making. And these solutions can also be used as daily systems. From a safety perspective, again, it is critical that any adverse events or any issues with the product is highlighted and is brought to the notice of the researchers as early as possible, and mobile applications help that cause to a large extent in being able to monitor safety data of patients, and also help patients to be able to report adverse events. Some of these applications can have forms like MedWatch form-based, forms that are available for them to be able to fill in the data and submit the adverse event report, or various other forms. And being able to analyze the patient data as it comes in, almost in real time, and being able to make critical decisions, making this data available for the safety boards, safety review boards, and all the research stakeholders, and any actions taken by the patients, be it taking a medication, be it filling in an assessment or a questionnaire, or reporting some sample data, whatever that is, all of that is tracked. And from a retention standpoint, since you would be monitoring closely, you would be able to intercept any potential, dropouts, being able to see how the compliance is trending, whether a specific patient or a group of patients are visiting the site on a regular basis, are they taking the medication on a regular basis, and so on and so forth. And can also be used as an educational tool to continuously keep the patient informed of the ongoing trial, of the product itself, and any other information that would give them the confidence to continue on the trial, and also motivate them to be part of the trial in the long run. Looking at some of the typical mobile application features, specifically patient-reported outcome applications, they got to be consistent and complete in capturing the data, be able to configure the medication intake reminders and follow-ups based on a specific protocol. They could use various methods like SMS or other push notifications, as many of you might be using your iPhones and other smartphones. You would get these notifications from the apps that you have installed. So very similar to that. Being able to record any acknowledgments by the patient and being able to see the reports, both from a researcher perspective as well as even from the patient perspective. If you have a specific regimen, the patient would want to know whether he is being compliant, because based on that, I think the effect and the impact of the drug that they are taking might depend. And being able to monitor the data real time, sending out email notifications if anyone needs to be informed of a certain event during the course of the trial, educational, as I mentioned earlier, any other ad hoc messaging as well. Adverse event reporting could be a big part of the application, being able to fill up the assessments. When it comes to patient-reported outcome, most of the outcomes are recorded either in the form of an assessment sheet or a questionnaire, being able to send reminders to patients asking them to fill in these assessments. And within these assessments, you could have multiple questions, and being able to associate a question with an image. Just to support that question, give the patient a visual tool or aid to understand the question better. And also voice, our application at least, we can record the questions in the voice form, and certain patients that are either not educated or cannot read for whatever reason, read the text, they can push a button and be able to listen to the question in voice form. Coming to the voice, many of the smart devices that are in use today, you can record voice. So enabling that feature, for example, in case of an adverse event, if you would like the patient to kind of report their verbatim in the form of voice, you can enable such features. And if the applications have those features, I think it will go a long way in capturing the data real time and making as much information available for researchers as possible. And also from a patient monitoring compliance perspective, the research teams can zero in on a specific group or specific individual to prevent potential dropouts, and can do personalized follow-ups and reporting overall dashboards and reports that can give you a real-time view of where the overall trial progress is and the compliance levels are, and the adverse event situation is. I think is one of the key features that you would expect in such applications. So with that, I would like to hand it off to my colleague Vikrant for walking us through the implementation and value proposition aspects of such applications. We will also talk about a specific case study and Vikrant would walk us through that. And towards the end of the presentation, we would give an overview of PaDiSys application and also a quick video demo. Vikrant will walk us through that, and we will close it off with Q&A towards the end of the session. Vikrant, over to you.
Thanks, Venu, for a deep insight of the use of disruptive technologies and mobility in life sciences and clinical trials. Greetings, everybody, and thanks for participating in this webinar. Now I'm going to walk you through an overview of using mobile-based solutions in clinical research. As you saw and heard from Venu how you can potentially use some of these features of mobile-based solutions, a mobile-based system can, in the context of monitoring, safety, and retention, empower a patient to proactively manage their own medication intake and report outcomes electronically using mobile devices. Now, other than using mobility for reminders and alerts only, it could double up as a patient diary system. Now, I'm sure most of you would have had the experience of using electronic patient diaries, but until now, the diaries that were used were primarily, PDAs and palm tops or other customized devices that were customized for a particular study or research initiatives. Now, these devices don't come cheap. They are not only expensive, but are also very complex to train and operate on. Now, over here, what we are trying to look at is an innovative, a disruptive technology that can improve the communication and bridge the gap between the various stakeholders of a clinical trial process, such as the patient, the investigator, the clinical research coordinator, the clinical staff, the CRO if involved, and finally the sponsor. Now, in terms of the value proposition that we have, such a system can bring to the industry the use of reminders to improve compliance in medication intake, site visits, interventions, and ensuring that the patients are on track in terms of following the right parameters of the protocol. A simple example being that a patient is called for a blood sugar test, and the patient comes to the site in the morning consuming a cup of coffee and a couple of cookies. Now, this dissolves the whole purpose of the visit, which pushes the study timelines and elongates the study period overall. Now, to cater to this, an ad hoc reminder can play a critical role wherein the clinical staff could send out a message a day prior, ensuring that they come fasting to the site for the test. Now, in terms of data capture, multiple types of formats of questionnaires and assessments can be configured, such as quality of life questionnaires, health-related quality of life questionnaires, clinical observations at the site for the site staff to fill in presence of the patients or remotely can be done. Educational and motivational messages can help patients and subjects to self-manage their treatment routines. And overall, with monitoring, you can zero in on to a patient's adherence to a given protocol on a day-to-day basis, on a dosage-to-dosage basis, and prevent safety-related hazards, delays in study timelines, mid-trial dropouts, and various other such impediments in the study. Now, all of these are working towards bringing benefits to the clinical research initiative, primarily in terms of having an improved patient compliance to all the parameters across, to have better research outcomes and endpoints, ensuring that you are getting the right data, which is quality ensured, which is consistent, which is legible, typically in case of a lot of paper-based PRO assessments, handwriting of the patient is not readable or is not legible. In other words, patients, in other cases, patients go ahead and skip questions and miss out on assessments, etc. So all those issues are not going to be there anymore. And since the data is electronic, the data can be pulled into Excel or statistical packages that the sponsors are using and, hasten the complete cycle of analysis and take better and more calculative decisions in terms of the product. Overall, what we are looking at is how we can basically maximize the ROI using mobility. Now, I would like to draw your attention towards a recent experience of ours of implementing a mobility solution in a pharmaceutical clinical trial. Now, PaDiSys is the abbreviated form of the patient diary system. It is a mobile-based patient-reported outcome capturing solution that was selected as a preferred tool for a study conducted in the United States across multiple sites. Now, the primary aim of this study was to monitor patient compliance in terms of filling up the assessments in real time, analyzing and improving compliance. To cater to this, we worked very closely with the sponsor to see that the PaDiSys system was optimally configured for this protocol. From selecting budget devices to looking for an ideal solution for patient data capture to happen, we provided them with the mobile-based devices for their sites and their patients and used one of the two configurations provided in the PaDiSys system called MPRO. Now, having said that, this study is being conducted by a mid-sized pharmaceutical company, which is doing the study, which is an FDA-approved trial in the area of women's health, with a study duration of a year, wherein 270 patients are using PaDiSys solution to be screened in by filling up questionnaires on time and getting to it. Further, allowing the next 100 patients who are getting screened in to use the device, for patient-reported outcome capturing. Now, having known this, having known that there are the patient population is a multilingual type, we have configured the device, the application, to be available in both English and Spanish. And overall, the time taken for the PaDiSys team to set up this study and go live in production mode was about 2 weeks. In terms of having the devices that were used, we used Android devices, which were provided by NowPause, and in terms of having it shipped to each of the site with labels relating to that site and the patient IDs was taken care of by NowPause. Now, with this, I would like to very quickly walk you through the delivery process that we followed to give you a clearer understanding. Now, in the flow above, you see from a clinical study team's perspective, they go ahead selecting a vendor, approve the protocol, select the various sites, go through the IRB and the ethics approvals, go in for the investigator meeting, and then finally launch the study with the first patient first visit coming in. Now, we as a PRO vendor, we work in sync with the clients or the sponsors to review the protocol, to design the diary application, implement the diary application as a verbatim to the paper-based questionnaire or the questionnaire in scope. We test the diary application with user acceptance testing, create the final build, work with the sponsor to get the needed approvals, install the application on the devices, and ship the devices out to the various sites. Now, in parallel, what we also do is we prepare user manuals and set up help desks. And overall, once all this is done, we assist the site staff in the investigator meetings for training them on the various aspects of the mobile application as well as the web-based dashboard that the clinical staff uses. Now, in studies wherein multiple languages are used, we localize the diary application catering to that particular language. And I'm glad to mention that we at present support around 56 global languages, inclusive of Hebrew, Persian, etc., which are written the other way around. Further on, what we also do is we localize the user manuals in such cases and ship it all to the sites wherein we sync up with the study launch date and the first patient first visit coming in. On an average, we take anywhere between 2 weeks to 8 weeks to set up a study and have this the whole solution up and running in a live production mode for the study to go on a timely basis. Now, in terms of what I just mentioned, I would like to give you a quick overview on PaDiSys. Now, PaDiSys is, like I mentioned, is the patient diary system, and at present is the world's first truly mobile-based patient-reported outcome capturing solution, which has an add-on of a treatment adherence part, catering to studies that are extremely, focused on having treatment adherence and compliance as some of the key factors of the study endpoints. Now, having said that, I will quickly jump over to a video demonstration, which would take about 2 minutes, and this is how it is. Over here, you will be able to see an SMS-based system or a text message-based system where patients are reminded and they need to acknowledge their medication intake, which can be monitored by the research staff. Here you see the same question coming in, the same reminder coming in Spanish, showcasing multilingualism, even available on SMS. Next, we are moving on to the assessment part, wherein a patient who is empowered with this solution gets to open this application up, put in a username and password. Now, this solution typically follows global standards of FDA Part 11 guidelines, and thus is compliant, and the patient signs in. As soon as the patient signs in, the patient gets to see a summary of some of the key parameters of the study that he or she is enrolled in, such as the subject ID, the study that the patient is enrolled in, the site that they are visiting, and the investigator who is taking care of their case. In terms of assessment, you have multiple types of assessments. One could be an interval-based assessment or a scheduled assessment to be filled in on a daily basis or in a particular interval. And you have episodic assessments, which are dependent on any of the events or episodes that the patients experience. A quick overview on the questions are:
please describe on the scale below the number that best represents the average level of pain you experienced today. No pain at all. Worst pain ever experienced.
So here you see the question itself is read out to the patient and also there is an image that has been embedded for better comprehension for the patient, and this question type is a visual analog scale, allowing the patient to very quickly decipher and answer to the question that has been put forth.
Please indicate in the picture below where you experienced pain today.
Now, in such a question, you see you can take up multiple selection.
Did you take any rescue medication? Yes? No?
You would notice that the questions along with the options are read out to the patient so that it becomes easier for the patient to understand and answer accordingly. Further on, there are multiple different features like Venu mentioned earlier, such as voice recording, wherein the patient can record a 10 to 15 second voice clip in case there are any issues or there's something wrong with the treatment that the patient is experiencing, and can send it out to the clinical staff instantaneously with them monitoring and following up with the patient. So as soon as the patient submits the data, in the next minute or so, the research team would be able to view and analyze the data coming in from various patients and take calculative decisions much faster than the other conventional methods. What additionally we have in this application is reports and calendars, wherein the patients themselves can look at how compliant they have been to their given protocol, and in case of a calendar, they can see some of the future events, such as going for a site review meeting or going for a site visit or taking up medication on a day-to-day basis. So with this, I am at the end of this solution and the presentation, and I would request Venu to take over from here, please.
Thanks, Vikrant. For you all who have any specific questions, I would want you to use the panel that's available for you all to be able to enter the questions. You can see the Q&A panel on the right-hand side of your screen. So please feel free to use the Q&A panel, and we will address those questions now. I'll give you a couple of minutes. In the meantime, I have a few questions in here. Vikrant, probably you can address this one. How many studies have you used PaDiSys in so far? This is the question. If you would like to address that, please.
Sure, Venu. Thanks for the question. Whoever asked this. Now, PaDiSys as such was rolled out last year, and we have been successfully implemented this solution in 2 pharmaceutical research initiatives and 2 academic research initiatives. In terms of pharmaceutical research initiatives, we have used this in a phase 4 post-marketed survey, and right now are using it in the area of women's health, wherein primarily we are working around the patient data capture and the treatment adherence area. In the academic research sector, we have used this in the area of oral chemotherapy in the area of oncology with a research institute in Italy, and we have used the PaDiSys treatment adherence system in a research study for nutritional compounds in one of the leading universities in Australia. So right now we are about 4 studies old, and are looking forward and are in talks with some of the other top pharmaceutical companies to have it implemented. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, there's one more question, Vikrant. I think I'll address this. Please feel free to add towards the end of it in case if you find it. So the question is, could patients run the app on their own smartphone? The answer is yes. And we can make that happen 2 ways. For example, if you consider iPhones or iPads, we can make the application available on iTunes, so the patients can download and install that, just like they would install any other app. And the other more restrictive and more regulated way of doing it is us taking their phone, installing the app, and then giving it back to them for whatever reason. And they can definitely use these. However, they would need the credentials from us. Once we set up the patients and their credentials, that information is obviously needed from them. And we would also disable as and when disable these applications, so they'll not be able to use the application. And the applications themselves do not store any data on the phone, and it's any data that is captured is sent out to the server immediately. So it takes care of all the compliance, Part 11, and other such regulatory requirements as well. So another question is around how does the system address submission of adverse events from patients to a central capture system? Example, clinical trial database. Vikrant, do you want to address that?
Sure. Could you repeat the question, please?
Yeah. So how does the system address submission of adverse events from patients to a central capture system? like a clinical trial database?
Okay, so primarily how this works is the patients have in the application a button that allows them to quickly get connected to the severe adverse event hotline or any other telephonic connection that has been provided at the site or to the investigator. Now, as soon as the patient does this, the number one is that the call date and time is stamped, and the research team or the hotline support gets to capture this. Now, apart from this, the investigator who has the patient enrolled in their site gets to see this adverse event a notification on his dashboard, on his web-based dashboard, which he can look at, view, and generate reports based on the number of adverse events that have come in. Now, technically, whatever adverse event has been reported is further inputted in the system, and once the study is over, or even in between of the study, as per the protocol, and the workflows that have been mentioned, the data can be pushed into some of the systems that are the sponsors, etc., are using. Now, while we are saying this primarily is this feature allows the investigator to know the exact time and date when the patient experienced this adverse event, vis-a-vis a time where patients have experienced an adverse event, but by the time they have gone to a site visit, which can be between a couple of days to a week to a month, that particular reaction or that particular event has subsided, and the research team does not have adequate knowledge of what exactly went wrong, and thus this prevents that that area of monitoring patients. Thank you.
Great. Yeah, thanks, Vikrant. And right now, the way the data is collected, it sits in our database that we have on the server side. We can also integrate with other, be it a clinical data management system like Oracle Clinical or Inform or Medidata Rave or any such systems, or even with safety systems, if that's a standard process that you follow, systems like Argus, RSG, or any other custom safety systems that you may have, you would be able to integrate our application with those, so you can, any data that's captured in here goes into the intake module of those systems, and then follow the typical process. All right. So another question, Vikrant, is, have you any experience in collecting PRO data for primary endpoint data?
I'm sorry, Venu, could you please repeat the question?
It says, have you any experience in collecting patient-reported outcome data for primary endpoint, for primary endpoint data is the question.
Well, at present, the data capture part for primary endpoints has not been specifically taken up, but it is more in the area of quality of life and health-related quality of life assessments that we have been working on. But we are looking for an opportunity where we can, use the system to, capture primary endpoints in a study. So the answer is no in terms of capturing primary endpoints, but yes in terms of having some of the QOLs, being captured.
Okay. Okay, a couple more questions. Do the patients remain identifiable when adverse events are reported?
So does the question
yeah, the question is, the question is, do the patients remain identifiable when adverse events are reported?
The answer to this is the patient certainly would be identifiable to the investigator by their patient ID numbers, not by name or by any of their personal details. The patient ID that goes into the system is the only way that a patient can be identified, and that goes across the system. So the details of the adverse event would be tagged only to the patient's ID specified for a particular study, which can be the patient's clinic or site ID, or it could be the randomization ID of the patient.
Right. Another question is, have your scales been validated using these devices? I'm not quite sure about that. Vikrant, have your scales been validated using these devices?
No, the scales have not been, these are not validated scales right now, but it again depends on the type of the study and protocol that comes in. If the scales that are being used in a particular assessment needs to have a certain degree of specifics or validation required, we can either customize the scale to work that way, or work with the scale providers or the people who have devised the scale to ensure that we comply with the right scales, and then implement it in the system. But it is certainly something that we would like to take up, or we take up as and when a protocol that demands such a complexity. So for a large number of studies where behavioral and observational data is captured, some of these scales are not validated.
Right. Yeah. So there's another question. This is a more generic question, Vikrant. I think I'll be able to address this. How many employees does Take have? We didn't spend a lot of time introducing Take. We've been around since 2010, 12 years now, and we have around 1350 plus employees as part of Take Solutions. NOPAS is our partner and the primary provider of the intellectual property around PaDiSys, and we have exclusivity to sell and implement this solution, collaborating with NOPAS. There's another question. The data recorded in these devices go directly into ECRF or into another database? Vikrant?
Thank you, Venu. The data coming in from the patients via the mobile device goes into our database, from where the investigator and the clinical staff can view it, manage it, download it in terms of reports. However, if a sponsor needs it to be pushed into some of their statistical packages, we can facilitate that by since the data that is stored is in globally accepted formats such as CSV, XML, Excel, PDF, etc. So we have the capacity to format it and have it placed in the clients or the customers' statistical package. However, it at present does not by a nature.
I think we lost Vikrant there. Sorry about that. Hope he'll be able to join in. There are a few more questions. I'll try to address those, and subsequently, for anything that we cannot get to at this point in time, we'll be more than happy to address them offline, or even have one-on-one sessions with you all. One question is, does the flow of AE data from the patient to the central capture system introduce a delay in the regulatory submission timelines? Absolutely not. This is in line with typically how adverse event data is captured. It definitely is a step up compared to typical legacy paper-based capture process that's still used, unfortunately, in a lot of trials, obviously for various reasons. So no, it doesn't, and that's the answer to that. Have you encountered any challenges on the IRB level of approval for these devices? No, not more than your typical. Vikrant, are you back on?
Yeah, hi, I'm back. Sorry, I had dropped out.
No problem.
So can I answer this question, Venu?
Yeah,
Could you repeat this, please?
Yeah, so have you encountered any challenges on the IRB level of approval for these devices?
So typically in the pharmaceutical world, where the IRB and ethics will dive deep into what is being used, etc. I think we sailed through it in both the cases that we have the system used. Now, a patient data capture module used for the recent study in the U.S. Did of course have some time spent on the utility of it, but I think at the end of it all, it got accepted, looking at the kind of potential and the benefits that it brings in as against using paper. And I think it did not take much time for the ethics committee or the IRB to nod in the right direction and let it be used in the clinical trial. So no challenges per se with our experience of 2 pharmaceutical trials and the 2 academic trials. So we are good. We have been pretty good in terms of getting the approvals in line. Thanks.
Thanks, Vikrant. One last question. We'll close out the Q&A session with this, and please feel free to reach out to us if you have more. This one is, was there any validation of the mobile PRO compared with paper diaries, which are the current standard?
So in terms of validation, the validation is yet to come out. We still need to get the right kind of data, coming out and journaled and then published. So we are waiting for a couple of more studies to come in to have it publicly announced in terms of how much of a validation does an MPR or mobile-based patient-reported outcome capturing carries as against a paper-based. So I think we will have to wait for it for a few months, I suppose, before we can release some of these some of this information.
Yeah. One more thing is just to add on to what we can just mention. Sorry, got distracted a little bit. Is that what we are seeing already is, some of the things as the key benefits that we have mentioned earlier is immediate or near real-time capture of data, more controlled quality of data, being able to send out alerts and notifications using the application, and which is in turn improving the compliance, and being able to analyze the data because we are capturing that electronically, and as Vikrant demonstrated in his video, the data is available immediately for the clinicians to look at and review. So these are the advantages that we are seeing, both in terms of productivity, in terms of fastness, in terms of real-time availability of data and compliance and so on and so forth. Do we have an objective study where we can compare side by side and give you numbers? We don't, as Vikrant mentioned. We'll have to spend a little bit more time before we have all the data points needed to be able to do that. But otherwise, we are seeing the impact and the positive impact and benefits of the solution already. I'll take one more question, Vikrant. Is there an audit trail of any changes that the patient makes when using the system? Absolutely. The answer is yes. So with that, I will close out this session. Thank you all for joining in. Over to you, Penny.
Yes, I just wanted to thank everyone for joining us today. We will continue to provide more webcasts on the latest technology in this space. If you have any specific questions, please do not hesitate to email me. There's my email address, penny.calicio@takesolutions.com. My phone number, 609-720-1002, extension 230. I'll be happy to answer any questions or set up a one-on-one meeting for you. And again, thank you all for participating.